What was a moment in time on that one?
One afternoon in a math class, Jeff being the brainiac that he was, and me being very stupid in math or science, both, I was struggling, and Jeff being the gentleman that he was, didn't know me very well, but he saw that I was struggling, and he came over and he guided me and taught me a practical way of, I believe it was a formula of some sort or an equation, I can't remember. And because he taught me that, I was able to pass.
Jeff came to my cottage on a regular basis with Dave Ballantyne and Greg Matthews, and we would go up there, and it didn't matter if it was in the middle of the winter or I know I have some pictures of Jeff laying on this iceberg with me, and it was starting to float out into the lake. And I remember in particular there was one time we played horseshoes, and Jeff was my partner, and we played against Greg and Dave, and the deal was whoever lost had to walk to the beach in their tighty whities. And Jeff was terrible. He was the worst horseshoe player you could imagine. And it was set up that we had numerous games that we were going to play. It was the best out of 5 or 7 or something like that. And I was carrying him the whole time because I was the ringer because I had the cottage and the horseshoes. Well, Jeff started to drink. And as Jeff started to consume more alcohol, he could not miss. And we were in really tough shape, and after so many beverages, Jeff was hitting ringers left, right, and center. Needless to say, I have a picture of Dave Ballantyne and Greg Matthews heading to the beach in their underwear with Jeff and I laughing behind him. So it was something I remember.
First year at Laurier, Jeff and I were in the same programs. Pre-exam time, he started to get into the fence business. King Fence, I think it was called, which is the fence version of Student Painters. So I can remember going back to our residence, because he stayed for the summer. King Fence, yeah, it was his world. He went everywhere with a measuring tape clipped to his belt, but it didn't do well. Like, I can remember going to party in Waterloo, and he stayed there for the summer, and I crashed there and at our apartment, and underneath the balcony was stacks and stacks and stacks of lumber for his fence company that in the end, I don't know if King Fence tried to sue him or he was suing them, but in the end, maybe it's not the best story in the world because it didn't really pan out for him.
My most fond memories of Jeff was the summer I spent with him in Port Elgin. We slept in the camper in tents, and we had a little student painting business. Rembart Student Painters, which Jeff was part owner with Bart in. Jeff always found a way to be part owner, not just an employee, and we had a lot of fun painting a lot of cottages and spending a lot of time in Port Elgin with him and the family.
I don't know, I was probably skipping class, or we were both, I don't know. He needed some parts for his Volkswagen, right? So we get in his car, and it was like the start of the winter, early December, snow's coming down, and we head out to Hamilton's Corner over by Arkle there. Yeah, Arkle Road and Gordon. And that place is still there. Anyways, we go. I forget what we were looking for. Anyways, we found a couple parts there, and then we decided to head back to the school. Of course, we come up into the parking lot, back in the back there, and Wheeler starts doing donuts, and he's like, you know, booting around, and he comes around the one corner, and all of a sudden there's a car coming the other way, stopped, and we slid, and it wasn't like a heavy collision, but enough to like hit the bumper to bumper, face to face, and the two cars bounce. And I look over into the windshield, and I actually should have mentioned it while he was here, but I look, and it's Tom Gill and Tom's girlfriend driving at the time. And I'm thinking, oh no. But him and Wheeler were good friends, and they've known each other for years. So Wheeler gets out of the car, and he's like, oh, Tom, hey, you know, it's okay. And Tom literally picked him up off the ground, slammed him down on the car, starts into him. I come around and say, Tom, Tom. Of course, he didn't hit him or anything. It was just a pretty, you know, knowing Tom, and Jeff smoothed it out. It was all good. That was Jeff. He could always talk his way out of a situation or make things right. So it was all, that was Jeff.
I'm just thinking of all the cars he owned. He taught me how to drive standard in his Volkswagen that he had just recently painted himself. And I think he also got Rolls-Royce hood for his Volkswagen Beetle because he could.
Was in Port Elgin, Ontario. And whenever I think of Jeff, this memory comes back to mind. It was sunset one summer evening, driving down the North Shore in the Wheeler station wagon. We're listening to American Pie, just singing at the top of our lungs. We're enjoying life so much, having a great time. Whenever I think of Jeff, that memory comes to mind.
And we had our serious talks, and he was good about that. He understood a lot. Although I always remember he teased me out in front of everybody, but when it was just me and him talking, we got to who we really were, and that was nice.
So one of the earliest memories that I had as a human being was with Jeff Wheeler and his dad. And I was in my kitchen on Renfield Street, and his dad was sitting on a chair. He was standing at his dad's knee, being really shy, and he was putting his face in his dad's lap. Because they were trying to encourage Jeff to come walk across the kitchen and play with me. And I remember looking at my mom saying, like asking, like, you know, what should I do? How do I get him to come over? And I just said, hey, you know, do you want to play with me? And I remember him walking over, and then the memory ends. I just remember him holding onto his dad's leg and just being super shy.
For Jeff, it was always about scale. When we would organize a group of us going to see a concert like U2 or whatever, it always had to be a bus or 3 buses or something. It couldn't just be a couple of us going down to a concert. When we went to prom, it wasn't a limo or, you know, a few of us getting into a rental car. It also had to be a bus. So it was always big, it was always crazy.
U2 comes to Toronto for a concert. Jeff organizes a way to make money from that. And we loved it because we got a bus ride to see U2, and we paid, I don't know, $50 or $100, I'm not sure what, to get on the bus. And we had a blast on the way down, and we had a safe ride home, and we got to see this concert. And I hear that Jeff made $5 grand. Like, he's my hero.
He had sold so many seats on the buses and going to the concerts. And I think he needed one more seat or something like that. So he said, Shannon, jump on the back of the bike with me. So he scooted home and got another helmet, came back, I put on the helmet, so we went to Toronto on the back of the bike. And I believe all the buses went to whatever concert it was. I can't remember if it was U2 or not. And then at the end of it, I don't know if there was a carload that went as well, but a bunch of people, guys, decided they want to go to a strip club. I remember it was on Bloor in the west end of the city, and when they all went to the strip club, I think Jeff kind of looked at me like, you know, what do I do? And being the wonderful human being he is, we went to a little bar across the street, and him and I sat and had a beer.
I would say it was more of a moped than a motorcycle. And him and I remember driving around, and thought we were kind of cool, and we were on this little motorcycle, and the two of us together probably weighed, you know, 350 pounds, and the poor thing was bottoming out and was struggling to go anywhere. But we would cruise around, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing a hockey helmet instead of a motorcycle helmet, but anyway.
And this was during university. I don't know, I hadn't seen him in like 4 or 5 years. Hadn't even really chatted to him. And I had gone on a bit of a trip where it took me through the West, and I'd gone down to Hawaii and Fiji, New Zealand, Australia for about a year. And on the way back, it had some fun. I was in Hawaii, and I was with Ed Berry. And Ed and I, we had just literally run out of dough, out of cash, and we ended up staying an extra week in Hawaii, and we had to rearrange some tickets, and we had no money. And we had no flight from Vancouver to Toronto, but we could get to Vancouver. Out of the blue, phoned him up. I said, Wheeler, I just landed in Vancouver. Ed and I are here. Blah. You know what? The guy, we weren't even done the conversation. He's in his car going to get us. And we stayed at his place a couple of nights until we could get a flight back to Toronto.
I remember one time when I was working in England, and Jeff used to come over every once in a while. Our business would cross paths every once in a while. And Jeff was working for a related business that I was in, and every once in a while he would come across the pond, and he would show up and work with me, and we'd always have problems going on, and we'd always have issues. And Jeff would come in, and he'd come in, assess everything, what's going on, Jamie? You know, how can we help you? And then, you know, a week later, everything would kind of be solved, and it was like he worked magic.
He suddenly showed up out of nowhere.